I guess we expected it. It still is not official, but it looks like Alex Smith will be released by the Washington football team.
It's kind of a weird ending to his tenure here, but I think it's the ending that makes the most sense. I think he needs a fresh start. He needs someplace else, and Washington clearly wasn't overly through their quarterback situation. Rivera said so at the end of the season, and they feel like they have a defense that they can win with. And while Alex's comeback was unbelievable, it's just it's hard to imagine being able to rely on him for 16 games. And I think that Washington football fans we just need a little more excitement at that position. Bottom line.
Yeah.
You just need better play overall, and the monetary savings are substantial, where you save nearly $15 million by releasing him. That goes right to your salary cap that you can start spending on a free agency in about 2 weeks. And it was time to move on. Look, we knew for the most part that they were not just going to roll it back with the same three quarterbacks, the same quarterback cast that was here last season, because let's be honest, they were underwhelming. And you have to get better at that position to compete in the NFL. And this gives him a chance to try to latch on with another team as a backup. I mean, I don't think anybody's going to entertain him as a starter. Maybe the Bears, because they're just in quarterback hell, maybe. But I think it works for both parties. Works for Alex to get a fresh start and latch on somewhere else, and Washington just has to get better and improve at that spot.
Yeah, well, I know that he really liked the area, so I'm sure he's disappointed about that. But you're right. But what's this tell you? This tells you that there is a plan. Now, we don't know what the plan is, but they weren't going to come back with those three guys. They weren't coming back with Alex, Kyle, and Taylor.
Right.
Right now, it's just Taylor. So, and they're not going to come back with just Taylor and Kyle. They're going to make some sort of an addition at that position, whether it's a veteran and a draft pick, or just a draft pick, or just a veteran. They're just going to go out and get somebody. We just don't know who it is yet, but we kind of knew that was coming.
Is there anybody?
It's kind of exciting to think about.
Is there anybody that thinks though that the organization did him dirty? That
no, I think it's just business.
I
think it's just business.
And look, I always thought he was underwhelming when he was getting wins. The crazy part about it is, for a team that has struggled mightily, I know they got into the playoffs this year, but they were sub 500 at 7-9. He was 11-5 as starter.
Yeah,
crazy.
It's kind of fluky, I think.
It's definitely fluky. It's not a way you judge quarterbacks.
It wasn't fluky. It wasn't fluky from the before, pre-injury, because he was a different quarterback. I mean, he wouldn't put up huge numbers, but he could run a little bit. The next round was probably a little fluky, just based on who they beat.
Maybe, but he does have a way of keeping you in the game.
Look, he's a veteran. He's a veteran.
They were good enough to be able to capitalize on it. Yeah. But the margin for error when he's your quarterback is very slim, right? It's a very small margin. Mm-hmm. So I disagree with Cakes a little bit. I mean, I think that, when he was in there, he was our best quarterback.
But JP,
that's not saying much. I mean, when you have two other mediocre to substandard quarterbacks and he's slightly better than those other guys, then.
But you look at his record versus the. But there's a reason, Cakes, why the team responded when he was in there. Listen, I'm all for moving on, but there's a reason why the records when he was in there, like 11-5, and when everybody else, it was something like 6-27 or something. I mean, there's something there. You may not be able to put your finger on it, but there's something there. That's not just fluke.
And this year he actually had a couple 300-yard games. Now, that is an anomaly. I think that in round one, if you want to go back a couple years pre-injury, they're winning games a lot of times despite Alex Smith. He was having, 178-yard games on the regular, and they were finding a way to win. But he does keep you in the games because he generally keeps the turnovers low, and we've seen how much that is impactful. If you could just not lose the game for you, you're going to have a good chance to
Alex Smith
win a lot of games.
At this point is the type of quarterback that if you can scrape and just get by with him and your defense is, a top 5 to top 7 unit, you could possibly win some games. But that's not going to get you on a deep playoff run. It's not going to get you to a Super Bowl. You have to set your bar higher. I like what they're doing.
I think Jason is right.
They have a
plan in place. Now, when we made our predictions as to who was going to be the quarterback 1 through 3 come the fall, I said they might just run it back, and Alex would emerge as number one.
Well,
It's
we told you
clearly-
that wasn't going to happen.
It's clearly not going to happen, and I was kind of reaching there, but I do kind of feel like it's unfair to Alex. Now, that's kind of removing the salary from the equation, because his salary is bloated for what he gives you. But I feel like he should have had a shot to compete.
Now, would
I
you
mean,
be saying that if it weren't for the injury? Is the injury clouding your judgment on that?
No, I'm basing it on what I saw last year. So now we don't know what's going to happen with Kyle Allen. I kind of presume they're going to bring Kyle Allen back. I just have a feeling like Scott Turner, Ron Rivera,
I think
they
so
like
too.
him. They brought Heineke back.
I'll be surprised if they don't.
Right. So I kind of believe they'll bring Kyle Allen back. And he talked about having an open competition. And like, well, why can't Alex compete for it? Like, I feel like he was done a little
I think
bit
number
dirty.
one, I don't think they did him dirty. I think number one, they can't rely on him. You just can't rely on him.
And he's not part of-
he showed that.
Kyle missed almost the entire season. Now, we don't know if they're going to bring Kyle back.
Yeah, we don't know.
And Heineke got hurt. It's like all those guys are getting hurt. There's a reason we ended up with Heineke. It's because there was a procession of injuries. And I'm just saying that if you wanted to truly be fair, and I know life is not fair, and the salary is a big part of it, but if you truly wanted to be fair and you wanted to have that open competition, why wouldn't he be part of that competition?
Because I also think-
because they're saving $15 million on
Yeah.
the cap.
That's a big
And-
thing. But I
That's a
also think
huge
they
reason.
wanted more out of that position.
Yes.
Alex was able to squeeze out some dubs, and I give him credit. And I don't think it was just a fluke. There's something there, but they just want more from that position.
And he's not part of their
They've
future. He's 37 years old. Like,
Yeah.
are you going to build? You're going to keep building around a 37-year-old guy? It's,
Look,
there
it's
a little upside?
kind of cliche, but it's just part of the business. You know,
Right.
especially that position. You got to get younger and more athletic, and he far surpassed what people thought he was going to do. None of us thought he was going to ever play again. None of
No,
us.
I don't think anybody in the world thought he was going to play.
Correct. So for him to come back and play 6 games or whatever it was, he far surpassed any expectations. I don't think they did him dirty. It's part of the business. Is he pissed off? I'm sure he is, based on Rivera's comments. But I mean, he also understands. I mean, he knows he's 37 and he's
been around. He's been on, 3 different teams
he's
now?
on 1.5 legs.
Yeah.
So they have a plan. We have to wait to see what it is, but they're going to try and get younger at that position and certainly more reliable physically.
I think the plan has to be a veteran because, I mean, there's just
It
such
could be.
youth and inexperience now with if Kyle Allen comes back and Heineke is obviously the only guy under contract on the roster right
I think
now.
it's going to be veterans and plus a draft pick. That's what I think.
So you think there could be 4 quarterbacks in the building?
Yeah, because I'm not so sure Kyle Allen's coming back.
Yeah, that's true. He's a question mark.
Yeah,
I think they could very easily keep 4, especially
could.
if we're going to be in this weird era where we're going to be testing all the time. I totally could see them keeping 4.
or they can just say, "Look, Taylor's our backup." You know, they signed him to a pretty big deal with all the incentives. So maybe they just. I mean, Kyle Allen was making like $750,000.
He was
Not
like
even-
the
not
lowest
even-
paid quarterback I've ever seen.
Right, not even close to what they gave Taylor.
Never seen anybody paid that low.
And maybe they think
Yeah.
they have a shot at Deshaun. I was just listening to the minute was by Zach Gell, and I'm not familiar with his name, but he was talking about how the Houston Texans aren't taking any calls. Well, eventually they got to wake up and take some calls because it seems like Deshaun is not blinking. And so going back to the money scenario, you remove Alex Smith from the books, all of a sudden you got a ton of money. So could you pay a quarterback $40 million? Probably. Mm-hmm. You could pay a quarterback
I don't-
$40 million a year.
I don't see him going in that
I
direction.
don't think so either.
It'd be great if they
It's
could make it
unlikely.
happen,
I'm just
but-
saying they have their plan, right? They whiffed at Matthew Stafford, but they may be loading up to have an offer for Deshaun Watson. And
They
I'm
were
sure they
sniffing
placed
around
him.
Mariota too, and it sounds like that's cooled at least for the time being. So they're turning over every stone at this point because they know they have to.
But what I
I'd
find
love to know
hysterical-
what names they're throwing around.
I would love to
it'll
know
be-
them too.
It'll be awesome whenever they sign a guy. 'Cause it's going to
there's
be
part of
something
me,
to talk
and
about.
There's part of me, and if you want to chime in on the AAA Always On Call listener lines, 800-636-1067, there's part of me that feels like they did him a little bit dirty. And I understand the salary part is a big part of it, but it just feels like I'm putting myself in Alex Smith's shoes, right? So I led the team to a bunch of wins this year. I had a couple of 300-yard games. I understand they weren't pretty, but I believe if I'm Alex Smith, that I'm going to be even better this year because I got over the tough part. I got over all of the questions with Aaron Donald jumping on my back. That's all behind me. Now I can go out there and play even better. I'm learning how to recover, and my body should be better. And they're not even going to give me a chance.
But how do you
But I
know
would
he's
say-
going to get
backup
You're
quarterback?
assuming he's going to get better.
Yeah,
This
you're
may be
assuming he's gonna get
he
stronger.
may be up against the ceiling already.
Yeah.
This may
He
be
may-
it.
He may
That's
be as
true, but
strong
I'm
as
telling
he's
you
ever
how
gonna
he
get.
feels. And that's what he said. When he's done these interviews, he feels like the toughest part is behind him and that he should be better physically.
Well, JP, it doesn't matter. You have to be on the same page. The team has to agree with you. The team doesn't agree with Alex Smith.
Well,
I think
clearly
they just
when the
want
GQ
more.
article
I think they
came out-
want more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want
I'm sure
more out of that position.
Look, Alex is a professional athlete. He was the number 1 pick in the draft. He feels like he can still go. Well, his bosses don't. So
Well,
I mean,
they might think he can play a little bit, but in a pinch. But they don't. He does. They don't
Not
want
at
him
that
to be their
salary,
1A
yeah.
option.
No, of
they don't
course
want.
not.
They just look. Bottom line, they don't want him to be their 1A option.
I don't know
You're talking
why-
about. Let's be honest. You're talking about a quarterback with drop foot. Okay, a quarterback who could only play with a special device to allow him to run.
Mm-hmm.
So. I mean, he's doing. You want to talk about with like bubble gum and tape and everything? It's unbelievable.
I mean, he played
what
6
he's been
games.
able to accomplish.
Give him 16 games or 17 games. It's just not going to happen. So, look, I like Alex a lot. And like I said, I'm very impressed and feel good about what he did just as a person. But it's just part of the business, man. If he
They
was
won the
27,
majority of their games this year with Alex Smith under center. They
Okay,
wouldn't
well,
make
they
the
could-
playoffs without Alex Smith. They wouldn't win the division
They
without
won
Alex
7
Smith.
games.
I understand, Cakes, but for Alex Smith, they don't make the playoffs.
but they could probably put someone else in there and do the same thing. You don't know.
Your coach
Well, but
Rivera.
the truth is, the record of the others, though, over that same tenure, has been woeful. He's actually been the only winner.
All right, but
So
that says more
he does
about
have that going for him.
Yeah.
I
That
think
says
they did
more-
the right
that
thing.
says more about the quarterbacks behind him than it does
Absolutely.
Alex.
And it's not even close.
Maybe.
Let's go to Joe in Reston real quick. If you want to chime in, 800-636-1067. Joe, what's up?
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
What's up?
Yeah, I really don't see how there could be any hard feelings between Alex and the team. I mean, he's an older quarterback. I mean, he's got all these surgeries that he's had, basically half the leg. I mean, the leg that he injured was the surgically repaired one, and I mean, it took him longer than a normal, injury would if it was a healthier quarterback. They're not signing any of these backups, whether it's Kyle Allen or Heineke, on these huge deals. I think that's just an emergency plan, and have some competition. They're definitely going to go out and make a move to get somebody. Alex has to realize that he just can't be part of the plans. I mean, this team is in motion to be a good team here in the next year or two if things kind of play out well for us.
Thank you, Joe. Yeah, I mean, that may be the case, but what if they whiff? What if they continue to whiff on all these guys and you just end up with Taylor Heineke and Kyle Allen? That's why I think maybe
Well, I'll be sized
Alex
for
Smith
Taylor.
would
You're
be
not-
upset.
no,
He
you're
would be
not-
sized.
JP, come on, dude. You're not going to just have those two guys.
I tend to agree with you, but I'm
not.
just saying they could whiff on all of the big guys who they're going after because that's what's happened so far.